Hello, and thank you for watching this March 16th weather update brought to you by Agrible, the makers of Morning Farm Report. My name is Eric Snodgrass, and I am a senior atmospheric scientist and co-founder of Agrible. Before we dig into the weather in the United States, I wanted to show you an awesome animation of the surface wind field from the end of last week. Over the tropical Pacific and Indian Oceans, there were 4 tropical cyclones turning things up at the same time. The 2 largest were Tropical Cyclone Bavi, north of the equator, and Pam in the southern hemisphere. Pam reached Category 5 strength last week with sustained winds over 160 miles an hour and gusts over 200. These winds did a lot of damage to the islands north of New Zealand and east of Australia, but thankfully this system has weakened into a Category 1 strength cyclone and is moving east of New Zealand as of early Monday morning. The good news for agriculture, though, is that this tropical cyclone that brushed along Australia's west coast brought much needed rain to a region that grows a lot of wheat. Now, turning our attention back to the United States, the monthly statistics for winter have been released, and this 4-panel plot of monthly averages tells an interesting story. After starting off cold in November, most of the United States experienced a warm December and January. Despite February's cold out east, the U.S. had its 19th warmest winter on record, thanks in large part to the sustained warmth out west. A closer look at February shows that while 4 states set all-time records for warmth out west, the East had 21 states that experienced a top 10 coldest February on record. As we've been hearing over the past month now, Boston has been hit pretty hard with snow, and thanks to repeated major snow events, they broke their all-time record for snow, besting the record set in 1872. Now, over the last 30 days, repeated low-pressure systems have pushed through the lower Mississippi River Valley and Ohio River Valley, bringing over 200% of normal rainfall to this area. Also, upslope flow in the Front Range of the Rocky Mountains has brought much-needed snowpack in areas stretching from New Mexico to Montana. Drier conditions prevailed across the northern parts of the Corn Belt, and the western side of the Continental Divide has continued its long-standing dry streak. Taking a closer look at the snowpack out west, which is crucial for the irrigation efforts in this part of the country, we can see that the snowpack is woefully deficient on the western side of the Continental Divide. Washington State through California is in especially bad shape. Here we can see how the mountain snowpack in central California is doing compared to average. Notice that the current season is about 20% of the average for this time of year. After having their driest year on record in 2013, California cannot afford to go much longer without significant precipitation. Here's a look at the water levels in several of the reservoirs around the state. You can clearly see that every station is far below normal, and with the drier season approaching, relief from this drought is not likely. Well, this graphic shows the latest U.S. Drought Monitor. The drought in the southeast is all but gone, but parts of Texas and Oklahoma are still in the grips of an exceptional drought. Out west, California's drought seems to have spread northward into Oregon and west into Nevada. And as we will see in a moment, the likelihood of this drought ending soon is very low. Please note that the Dakotas, Minnesota, and Wisconsin have slipped into the first stage of drought very recently. This area needs to be watched closely as large-scale weather patterns in the Pacific, which are forecast to evolve over the next few months, are correlated with drier conditions in this area. As I mentioned a moment ago, the probability of ending the drought out west is extremely low, with a less than 10% chance of ending within the next 6 months. Over the past 3 days, much of the United States has finally felt the grip of winter slowly slip away. Here is a map of Sunday's temperatures around noon, and we can clearly see that the warmth has returned to a large section of the country. How long will this last is the big question we want to answer, though. Over the next 48 hours, high pressure from Canada will push south into the United States and bring with it another round of cold air behind a cold front seen on this map by Tuesday. As a result, the middle of the week will have cool temperatures across the eastern 2/3 of the country. However, at this time we are not forecasting our temperatures to dip back far below freezing like they were just a few weeks ago. Looking out a little longer, the 6 to 10 day outlook shows that cooler air pushing off to the east while warmer than average conditions continue out west. The 6 to 10 day precipitation forecast is split diagonally across the United States, with drier than normal conditions from Maine to Southern California, and wetter than normal conditions in the southeast and northwest. Here's an animation of the next 10 days for precipitation. We can clearly see that the northwest will have an abundance of Pacific moisture introduce precipitation along the coast. But notice how little of that moisture makes it over the mountains into the regions that have been dry for the last 30 days. The southeast also gets another round of rain, although this system is not forecast to bring as much as we've seen in the last few weeks. To finish this video, I want to look at how the long-term weather forecast is focused on the behavior of two major circulation patterns in the Pacific Ocean. First, the sea surface temperatures in the Pacific have moved into a configuration with colder than normal sea surface temperatures stretching from China into the Central Pacific and warmer than normal sea surface temperatures from Alaska to Southern California. This configuration of SST anomalies, or differences from normal, is referred to as the warm phase of the Pacific Decadal Oscillation, also called the PDO. In addition to this, we are watching the resurgence of El Nino conditions across the equatorial Pacific. It is important to monitor each of these as they will have a large impact on the weather in the United States in the coming months. First, El Nino. On this chart, we will look at how sea surface temperature anomalies from September 2014 to October 2015 will evolve. Above the zero line represents El Nino conditions, while below this line represents La Nina. Since last summer, there has been a weak El Nino signature in the sea surface temperatures, but in the next several weeks and months, we are forecasting the building of a significant El Nino event. El Nino's strongest impacts are felt in the winter, as shown in this top figure, and the winter of 2014-15 matched quite well with the typical outcome of an El Nino, with warm out west and cooler and wetter conditions in the southeast. In the summer, however, the connections are much weaker, but there is some indication that the southeast will remain wetter than normal, as will parts of the Intermountain West. Here's the April through June temperature forecast from the National Multi-Model Ensemble. The warmth from Alaska through California is largely due to the warm phase of the PDO, while the cooler air in the south could be a reflection of the developing El Nino. While there is some disagreement among the forecast models about what will happen in the east, there is great consistency for the forecast out west, which means the warmth that has been in place all winter will continue. Forecasting precipitation anomalies out this far is very challenging and often inaccurate, so please understand that I do not have great confidence in what is displayed on this figure. However, for April through June, the south is looking wet, very characteristic of an El Nino pattern, while slightly wetter than average conditions push to the Intermountain West. There is a positive, although weak, correlation between the warm phase of the PDO, which we are in right now, and the precipitation out west. If this forecast holds true, it could spell some relief for the ongoing drought in these regions. Looking at the Midwest, I'm concerned with the developing drought in Minnesota and Wisconsin, as these regions are a big part of U.S. corn and bean production. Drier than normal conditions often result in this area in spring, when there is an El Nino and the PDO is in its warm phase. If this region slips into more advanced stages of drought as planting begins, there will be concern over the yields projected for this area. As always, we at Agrible will bring you the latest and best weather forecast information through our morning farm report so that you can efficiently plan your operations. We thank you for your attention, and we hope you look forward to our next weather update. Thank you.